What's up, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Variant the Podcast. Tim, we got a lot to talk about in just a week? Like, a lot of stuff happened in 7 days.
Yeah, and largely over the last couple of days.
But this keeps happening. It's like December, they're like, get it all out before the new year. Like tons. We're on the heels of the new Spider-Man movie, Spider-Man No Way Home. I think we're like less than 2 weeks as of shooting this away from its release date. But then they keep giving us more Spider-Man news, because that's one of the main things we're talking about today, right?
Yeah.
Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. But Spider-Man fans in general, man.
They're getting a healthy dosing.
Yeah, we're eating good, huh?
Yeah.
It's like Batman and Spider-Man, you're set.
Yeah, Spider-Man fans are not starving these days.
No, it's pretty crazy. But yeah, I guess so. We'll start off with the biggest piece of news.
Yes.
Which is...
that happened over the weekend.
Just happened over the weekend. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, which is part 2 or the second, the sequel to Spider-Verse, which is, who are the directors for that movie? The Lego movie guys, right?
Oh, man.
I'm putting you on the spot. I'm like, I don't know. Maybe you know.
No, it's Lord and...
Miller?
Lord and Miller.
They were going to do Han, the Solo film, right?
Yeah, Solo, yeah.
So, yeah, they were originally directing that, but then for XYZ reasons, they left the film for creative differences, as Hollywood so popularly uses. But anyway, we got Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, Part 1, Timothy. Part 1. For me, that was a big thing, because we know it's super successful. We would most likely assume this was going to be a trilogy based off of success. Even we've said it. Many people have said it. This is probably, overall, the first film was, the best Spider-Man movie ever made, just all the way around. So it made sense that, they're off the bat. They're like, you know what? Guaranteed 3. We're not gonna have to wait for box office sales of the second one. It's just part 1 of 2. So, but it's interesting though, because with the first film, we know obviously it was left, with the Spider-Verse and stuff like that, and the introduction of Spider-Man 2099 and the post-credit scene. Oscar Isaac will be voicing him, be playing Spider-Man 2099. Miguel O'Hara, if you will.
What isn't Oscar Isaac doing?
I know. So we knew we were getting a sequel, but the crazy thing for me is that saying part 1 and part 2 is you're going Lord of the Rings style, Hobbit style, where this is not. It's just it could be like Infinity War Endgame, where it literally ends on a cliffhanger and goes directly into part 3, where it's just one long film instead of this takes place 2 years later, 3 years later. You know what I mean? Being part 1 of 2 just means it's one long film that they're chopping in half, much like Infinity War with Endgame. You could use, again, the Harry Potter films, or what is it, Lord of the Rings and all that stuff. So I'm very, very excited, but that means they had a big story. There's one of two things here. They were like, hey, we know we're going to do 3, so we're just going to do, part 1 and part 2. Or the idea that they had for the second one was so big, the studio's just chop it in half. Or the directors were just like, it's so big, we needed to be part 1 of 2.
I think it's the latter.
Yeah, the directors.
It's just a bigger story that they're trying to tell. And, you can squeeze a lot of different stuff. You can easily squeeze multiple movies out of what, the expansion of this the Spider-Man universe that they're doing with Miles Morales. Because they're already getting their cake with Peter Parker right now with the MCU on the live action side, because they're doing this crazy crossover stuff now. And so now you've got this animated version of Miles Morales where you can kind of just be doing your own thing and expanding on that all by itself. I mean, Kingpin was in the first one.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So and we know pretty much we're getting Kingpin and the Hawkeye. So Kingpin's going to, so they can do whatever they want and explore many of even the same characters. So they can have their cake and eat it too on both sides.
Yeah, it's fascinating to me. And as a Spider-Man fan, I'm super excited, because also the title, Across the Spider-Verse. We see it in this teaser trailer, obviously, that they announced. Well, I guess let's kind of talk about the actual teaser trailer. So first of all, did you notice how Miles and Gwen are a little older now?
Yes, I did.
They're taller. Miles is a little bulkier. They look more. Yeah. They're older.
I thought they did a good job with it too, because he's not too much older.
No,
you can just tell he's grown up a little bit.
Yeah, and he's like Spider-Man now.
Yeah, they evolved his look just enough.
Same thing with Gwen.
Same thing with Gwen. Yeah.
Costume designs are a little upgraded. I noticed Ghost Spider. She's wearing blue Converse now instead of the blue flats. Miles now has a completely different Spider-Man suit where it's obviously all black, but he's got like the red lines on the side and stuff like that. I'm kind of hoping. I kind of really like, not kind of. I really like the urban Spider-Man suit, I guess you could say, from the first one with like the hoodie and the shorts and the Jordans. I really like that suit, so I'm hoping we kind of see that again. Even though it's like Miles is now at the end of that film, he like became Spider-Man. So I guess the hoodie and the shorts and the Jordans were kind of a work in progress. But I really, really like that look for Spider-Man, especially Miles Morales' character. It just works very, very well. So I'm kind of hoping we see that again. But it makes sense that like he's just wearing a normal superhero suit for the sequel. But anyway, it's interesting. I'm wondering what's happening because the trailer or the teaser opens up with Gwen coming back from her dimension, be like, "Yo, Miles, you want to come out and play?" Essentially, he's like, "I'm grounded.
Right.
I'm grounded."
I thought that was so funny that he goes, "I'm grounded."
Yeah, and she's like, "Well, is Spider-Man grounded?"
Yeah.
So
leave it. You gotta be careful. Those chicas will get you in trouble, man.
Oh, that's the whole thing where she looks at his journal and he's drawing pictures of her.
Yeah.
And she's kind of like, "Oh, okay." She's like trying to say creepy,
funny.
but not creepy.
And that's voiced also by
Haley
Steinfeld as well. So she's also
She's doing some work.
doing both ends of the MCU. Well, that's not MCU, but the Marvel.
She's on the Marvel side of
verse,
things.
if you want to call it that.
She's Ghost Spider and Kate Bishop,
Yeah.
which is really good.
That's a solid lineup.
But she's great as both. She's a
really
fantastic Ghost Spider, and thus far she's been great as Kate Bishop. But anyway, yeah, she comes and gets him, and then it cuts to like him being sucked into, I guess, the Spider-Verse again, where you see he's picked up by Spider-Man 2099, Oscar Isaac's character, and they're just basically the trailer's just showing off a lot of the animation at this point because we don't get really too much story. Is like, oh, so Gwen is gonna come get you. You're gonna go back into the Spider-Verse, and you're gonna run into Spider-Man 2099, and then shenanigans will ensue.
Shenanigans.
So I would have to imagine Nick Cage is going to come back as Spider-Man Noir, John Mulaney as Spider-Ham, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't they say Spider-Ham was supposed to get a spin-off movie, his own movie?
I do remember rumblings about that.
Yeah, it wasn't confirmed though, right? It was like a rumor.
Yeah, so it's like anything. You take everything with a grain of salt.
Because even Spider-Man Noir, like they were talking about,
that's
Nick
the
Cage
one that I want to see.
was going to get his own movie.
Yeah,
that's the thing with this. You could totally do that
easily.
Where I mean, literally in the title of all these movies, it's verse, and it lends itself to like, go out, take the most popular characters and give them their solo films and bring it back in and make the Miles Spider-Verse movies like the Avengers films, if you will, where they all come back together. But I'm just excited because I love the first movie. It's probably my favorite Spider-Man movie ever, all the way around, live action or not, just because, I mean, it fires on all cylinders. I can't really think of a thing I didn't like about the first movie. So I'm immensely excited about Across the Spider-Verse Part 1. I hope we get Scarlet Spider in here. I hope we get, who else would be really, really cool in here? Armored Spider-Man would be cool in the metallic, the black and silver armor, or the Spider-Man with like 6 arms, where on that universe, like he grew like 4 more arms. It's like, there's Silk would be, having Silk would be really cool in here. Like if they go comic books with it, there's just so many things you could do with this and different versions of Spider, women, men, everything. I want it. I want it all. I want it, Tim.
Yeah, I think that with this, because I agree with you, that was one of the best. We've talked about it many times. That was one of the better, if not the best, Spider-Man movie ever made, even though it's animated. And you can differentiate live action versus animated, but in my view, just as a storytelling experience, that's the best. It was the most rewarding Spider-Man experience certainly I've ever had.
And it was
as far as
shocking too, right? Like, because I thought it looked good.
It didn't, but it felt like it kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah, like where we were excited for it. Yeah. A lot of people were, but like I didn't think I was gonna love it I didn't think it was gonna be my favorite Spider-Man movie ever.
We get a lot of animated movies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you just didn't think this was gonna be as good as it was, even though it had an incredibly solid creative team behind it. But it really kind of, at least for me, it blindsided me, and even my kids were like, I can't believe how good that was, because we went and all saw it as a family.
The animation was different.
Yeah, it was, everything about it was fresh. The entire approach was different. The fact that they went with Miles Morales as the lead character as opposed to Peter Parker
was very smart.
Yep. A lot of, the way they open the film, there's this very sympathetic element going on with the death of Peter Parker, and all of that stuff. Kingpin's whole arc in the film. You're kind of sympathetic toward him, and then
Great
he just
villain.
go that hardcore, just like this is the bad guy, this is the good guy. There was that slight, even though he was definitely the villain,
For sure.
you know what I mean. There was that slight, arc there with his family. So just really, really well told. So everybody that I know of is like on board, waiting for this. So to see this clip come out, and it felt very much like it just picked up right where it left off.
For sure.
And as far as the creative team, I do want to point out, as far as like the directors go, because I like to give the creditors credit where credit's due. So Lord Miller, actually the writer and producer on the film. The directors are actually Joaquin Dos Santos, Kemp Powers, and Justin K. Thomas. So it was a co-director situation.
That's for the first one as well?
The first one, Lord and Miller were not the directors there either. And it was a different directing team. So it was I'm gonna butcher that. Peter Ramsey, Rodney Rotham, and Bob Perschetti.
Okay.
Or Persichetti. Persichetti. I apologize if I'm butchering your name. Perschetti. The reason that Lord and Miller were involved, Philip Lord at least was part of the writing team in the first one, and produced.
I was always under
this time they wrote and produced as well alongside. I believe.
I was always under the.
Make sure that I'm not saying this wrong, but Amy Pascal, Avi Rod, and Christina Steinberg are also producing alongside Lord and Miller.
I always thought they directed for some reason. I don't know why.
They were they were heavily involved in the story, the tone, and all of that. So I couldn't remember if they directed. And I didn't want to say one way or another, but yeah, it's a huge creative team.
Yeah. Well, you could.
On the directing side, the writing side, the producing side, but they clearly were all on the same page as far as the tone, the feel. And I'm super stoked. I might be as excited about that as I am, the Spider-Man No Way Home stuff.
Oh, for sure.
Just because it's very similar in what they're doing. It's that whole multiverse, and there's so many toys they can play with.
And in animation, you can literally do anything.
Exactly. And the creative team has proven like they have a really strong footing. They have a really strong understanding of what they want to do and how they want to tell the stories.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Imagine a story is really solid if you know where you're going.
So now that's the question, right? Is do they already have like an end in mind? Like, do they already have like, okay, we know we're going to here, and these are some of the pieces. They may not know all the pieces that are going to, fill in the blanks, but they have the general path. If they have that, it's going to be a really solid. I don't know if it's going to be a trilogy or they're just going to keep it going in perpetuity until it wears out its welcome, which I hope does not happen.
I mean, as long as it's making money, right? The studios are just going to keep pumping them out.
That's always the worry, right? Is you take something good and then you just kind of burn it out. And I would hate to see them do that with this. I think a trilogy would probably be perfect.
Yeah, and it's so specific. It's kind of like, what it reminds me as far as like, you see the animation and you're like, it's instantly that. Because like if anyone else copies this, you're just be like, oh, so Spider-Verse. Kind of like Klaus. Where Klaus, great Christmas movie. If you guys haven't watched that, Netflix, fantastic Christmas movie.
Excellent.
But that movie is very specific in its animation, where it's like, you see it and you're like, oh, it's Klaus. Like nothing really looks like it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And Spider-Verse is very much like that, where they went with this, new design and look, where it's like, oh, that's very vibrant. There's like kind of like a halo effect around the characters and all that stuff. The way they cut, the way they even use the music with transitions, very specific. Kind of like, again, I guess it would be like Star Wars, where Star Wars, their transitions are very specific, where like the black like swipe in and out. You know what I mean? Where you see that, you're like, that's George Lucas all day long. Yes. That's Star Wars. This movie has that personality about it, where from now on, wherever you see anything like that, it's Spider-Verse, which is really, really cool. And I think part of the reason what makes it, so unique, I guess, and us like the movie, because it did something new, I guess I'm trying to say. In a time where like we get Pixar pumping out stuff left and right, Disney pumping out stuff left and right, DreamWorks doing all this stuff. In a time where like CGI and like that 3D animation is like ruling the TV and movies, it's super hard to do something like that, but have a fresh take on it. And Into the Spider-Verse did that, I think.
I definitely agree with that. They managed to introduce a not completely original animation style.
No,
but
very specific.
A very it's unique in the way that they laid it out, and the combination of techniques that they used was very unique, and it made it just feel super, super fresh. And the mixture, they did this really great mixture. This is probably at the core of what I really loved about Into the Spider-Verse, was they had this really great mix of like modern and urban and just some of the cooler aspects of like New York culture with this really wholesome family story.
Yeah.
Right? That almost felt traditional, you know, in its core. And that made for just a really compelling story, because these characters are already great. We all know them. We all love them. They're already great characters with great backgrounds and stories of their own. But they just kind of took a whole bunch of different pieces and then just made a really nice stew out of it. It was really, really well done. And so this next one, like we have to wait a while. It's fall of 2022.
I know.
But with the way time is going, it's going to be here tomorrow. But man, I'm super stoked. And I know we knew that we were going to get our first look, but I just learned that we were going to get it like 2 days prior to it happening. I was like, oh, I forgot about that actually. And so it was such a cool, like, you know, surprise, you know, just all of a sudden there's just this whole scene from Across the Spider-Verse.
Well, Amy Pascal actually, you know, one of the heads over at Sony, she actually said that we're going to get a look at it pretty soon. And literally like 7 days later, we got a look. And she's also the lady that gave the other No Way Home rumors saying that Tom Holland isn't out and the 3 more movies.
She definitely knows. That's why, you know, it's like, if she's saying that, because she would know.
Yes, she's like one of the big shots.
So
over at Sony.
You know, it's not like she's somebody who's like, you can just dismiss that. She doesn't know what you're talking about.
All I'm saying,
she knows.
All I'm saying is she's 2 for 2. So let's see what happens with the Tom Holland stuff.
True. I'm gonna lean on. She's telling the truth,
which is a little bit of a bummer, because it's like I would have wanted that to be a surprise, but whatever.
I would have been surprised for sure, because I didn't think that was going to happen.
I thought Tom Holland,
and it's still not confirmed.
Not technically, no. But anyway, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, we're both super excited about it.
Very excited about it.
Can't wait to see it. Love the first one. But Sony is apparently just throwing stuff out there, Tim. They want us to know that 2022 is going to be their year. Because literally, literally the same day, almost at the same time, on their YouTube channel, Sony Pictures YouTube channel, they released a teaser trailer for Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse Part 1, but also released a 3-minute exclusive clip of Morbius, called The Transformation, which we see him stuck on a cargo ship, and I guess Morbius turn into the living vampire for the first time.
It's right after that scene you see in the trailer where he's standing in front of the cave. If you're afraid, leave now. You know, that, and then I guess that's his first conversion into Morbius. What did you think of it?
You know,
because I saw you commented on it on Twitter.
Yes, I like the scene. I think it's cool. It's kind of borrowing from The Matrix in its slow-mo aspect in ways and stuff like that. Yeah.
Not like a lot.
No, but you know, it reminded me of it with the bullet time thing, where like everyone I guess uses it now. It's like when you see like,
which by the way is a movie Arris has never seen.
This is true. Now the world knows. How crazy is that? I'm
not going to let you off the hook on that.
How crazy is that?
That feels like some kind of a violation of something. I don't know what.
I
just found this out, by the way. I've known him, I don't even know, I feel like forever at this point. I did not know he had never seen. I just found this out over Thanksgiving weekend, that he has never seen The Matrix.
It's one of those movies. I don't know why, because I was of age to see it, but it just slipped past me. And then like I would see it like on reruns on TNT and TBS like over the years and stuff. But like I've just never watched it all the way through for whatever reason. But there's lots of iconic movies like that. Like I've never seen Godfather.
I know.
I've never seen
that one. I know, and I refuse to kind of believe it.
I've never seen Seven.
That's some kind of like that's another violation.
Yeah, I've never seen Seven.
Not Seven. I'm The Godfather.
Oh, okay. But I'm just saying, like, I haven't seen Godfather.
Seven's a great movie.
But that's another iconic movie. That's a super iconic movie.
For sure.
David
Fincher, amazing.
I haven't seen The Third Hobbit.
That one's not like...
That's not like Matrix level, right?
No, I mean, that's not even that old.
But it's still like...
But that's not in the same... It's still great. I mean, especially if you're a fan of... Wait, you've seen all the Lord of the Rings?
Yes.
Okay, so The Hobbit, I'll give you a pass. Like, you can get to that. It was good, but it wasn't the original trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
But like The Godfather, that's like top 3 films ever made.
No, it definitely is. I'm gonna watch it over Christmas break. I have to. I have a list. I have lots of movies I need to start checking off.
I'm gonna hold you to that.
I still have to watch Dune. I haven't watched Dune yet. The new one.
I mean, okay, that just came out.
Yeah.
Even though I can't believe you still haven't seen it.
No, I know that's not like an iconic movie, but it's still like I need to see that movie. I'm just saying, there's a lot of movies I need to see.
There is a lot of movies you need to see.
Anyway,
I sidetracked us hard, but it was important for everyone to understand.
The Morbius scene.
Matrix.
The Morbius scene that Sony released. Overall, I liked it, but I'm worried. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, because I'm not the biggest fan of the first 2 Venom films from Sony. This is another Sony Spider-Man villain film. And even if the scenes or trailer looks cool, you know, how many trailers look awesome that the movie's just like, So I'm hesitant. I want it to be good. I hope it's good. The trailer looks good. The scene I thought was cool, but I'm just like, I'm on the fence. I'm staying my distance so I don't get my feelings hurt. I don't get my emotions crushed.
Well, how did you feel about the overall kind of tone of the scene and how they played Morbius? You know, because it was like it wanted to be a monster film. Yeah, but it was kind of a modern action style. Mm-hmm. Like what it kind of
reminded me of the Underworld films.
Yeah,
in tone. I love the Underworld films.
The first one
for sure, but I kind of like them all. I just think they're fun.
Oh.
But the Underworld films are kind of like Resident Evil movies in the sense where like they're fun, but it's like we know they're still a little cheesy. That's why that's kind of what makes them fun. There's just like mind off. Like, I just want to watch vampires and werewolves like fight each other. So I kind of getting that kind of vibe where it's like, which is a little disappointing because I just want it to be straight up good, not like novelty good.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense. But again, with the live action Spider-Man Sony stuff, I'm just kind of like so far, and this may fall in there, but hopefully, from what I've seen, it looks like I'll like it better than the Venom movies. Hopefully, from what I've seen thus far.
Yeah.
But again, I'm staying far to not have my heart crushed.
Yeah. I thought the recent trailer that we got, we talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that looked good.
Mm-hmm.
It was, it kind of surprised me. I was like, oh, okay, that looks pretty good actually. This clip, it didn't deviate from that a ton, but for some reason, it rang a little bit more concerning. There was some moments that felt a little bit video gamey for me.
But was any of that shocking where you're like,
no,
this is what I was kind of...
that's the kind of the thing, is that it's what we've seen stuff like this in the past, and I think your comparisons to Underworld and Resident Evil films are spot on. Like, the tone is almost identical.
Even the cinematography and stuff.
That's kind of what I was referring to. It's that kind of pop culture-y action film monster flick, like a Van Helsing. Van Helsing is probably the better comparison for me. I was not going to go that far.
What? Everyone loves that movie, no?
I was not
Vin Diesel. Vin Diesel, dude.
Yes, you're making it worse. You're making it worse. So Bloodshot, okay, I want to be fair. Bloodshot was not... I'm going to stop. So
you didn't love Bloodshot?
It was okay.
Vin Diesel, dude. Vin Diesel.
It was okay. But Van Helsing, do you remember Van Helsing, Hugh Jackman?
It's one of my favorite movies. It's just nostalgia for me.
It's older.
Yes. But Kate Beckinsale?
But like, for instance, like... Listen, Kate Beckinsale back in the day, that was like the Scarlett Johansson of our youth.
My Devil Wears a Red Dress.
Our Devil Wears a Red Dress.
Because she wears a red dress in that dancing scene with the vampire. So you remember this back in the day.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Some family friends had a hardcore band, and they made a song called My Devil Wears a Red Dress because of Kate Beckinsale wearing a red dress in that movie.
I don't know that I knew that.
We were all like 17 to 21-year-old boys like, Kate Beckinsale, though. That red dress, though.
I don't remember this. I do not remember this. I'm sure I was aware at the time, but it has fleed my mind. But yeah, so she was in Underworld and Van Helsing, actually. But you know, it's that kind of a vibe, just where it's part action, it's just very pop culture, popcorn. You know, it's not a true monster movie. I kind of really would like, with this character, Morbius, we talk a lot about like the difference between DC films and Marvel films and stuff like that, and how DC tends to gravitate more darker, more, you know, violent, etc. I kind of, in this instance, I kind of wish Sony would take a little page out of the playbook of DC and treat it really seriously, go really dark.
He's a vampire.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to say really dark, but I'm saying just have a darker tone overall and make it creepy and, you know, eerie and a true monster film with a slight horror edge. And you can do that and still keep it in the PG-13 range.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? But give it that edge. And this is kind of, it's feeling a little bit, and for many people, this isn't at all going to be bad news. You know, it's kind of has that Van Helsing or Blade or Underworld or Resident Evil type spin, which again, these have huge cult followings, you know, everything I'm naming. So it's probably still going to be fun, but it did leave me a little bit less like, oh, that could be good as the trailer. I don't know why, because they're very similar in tone. And there really wasn't that much new. I guess it was just I got to see more of the movement.
Yeah.
Because it was a whole scene.
We saw a lot more of the act, like you said, it was a scene, so a lot more of the exchange with the acting, because we were seeing a scene play out. But like you said earlier, I think the cinematography is like the subconsciously thing that's kind of like for me, because that's my problem with like...
And the visual effects.
I said that with Let There Be Carnage. Like there's this certain like look to the films and feel, which is the cinematography, the lighting and stuff, that's like... makes it feel like one of those films that's not like, you know, like again, like a Van Helsing or Resident Evil or an Underworld or something, where it's like, those movies are fun. And especially like the Underworld films and Van Helsing, I really like those movies, but that's a certain type of movie. I don't want that to feel, I don't want like the Marvel MCU Spider-Man stuff to feel like that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just like that. Because that was with Let There Be Carnage. That was like the biggest thing where I'm like, it's almost like you see a live action superhero Spider-Man or a Sony movie, so like a live action Sony superhero movie, and you're like, oh, that's a Sony one.
Yeah.
You like it because it's just the feel. Again, I don't know. And it just kind of feels outdated, I guess. Because especially with Let There Be Carnage, when you see all Cletus Cassidy he stole the Mustang or the car and stuff like that, I'm like, this feels like I'm watching like
a 90s
like the Blade or something, where I love the Blade movies. But they were made in the, you know, 90s, early 2000s, where it's like, now that's not acceptable anymore. That's only acceptable because that was made like 20 years ago.
Maybe that's intentional. Maybe that's an attempt similarly to what they've been doing with the 80s and some 90s styles in recent years in an attempt to jab that nostalgia button. You know what I mean? Maybe it's some, you know,
the execution isn't working for me.
Yeah, it might be a subconscious, you know, either that or it's, you know, just the creators are from that era also, and they just like the style. I don't know.
Yeah. To be fair with Let There Be Carnage, that story was the main thing, because that when we talked about that, it was like the story. I'm like, really? That's what you do with Carnage? That's the story you chose to tell? All right. Yeah. He just wants his girlfriend back? Cool.
Yeah. There were issues.
Yeah.
There were issues.
Anyway, it comes out January of the new year. Obviously we're gonna see it, but you know what I hope it is, because remember, I wasn't super excited. Well, I don't want to see super excited. I wasn't head over heels excited for Hawkeye, right?
Right.
Now I'm freaking loving that show, which we're gonna talk about here in a second. I'm loving that freaking show. So hopefully that works to my advantage with Morbius.
I hope so. I really do. I really hope, you know, because like, you know, whatever. And again, it could very well just be that, you know, we've kind of have a train of Sony films that have come out that haven't hit the spot exactly. So, you know, this might be just, there's some similarities in tone and in look and feel that might just be kind of triggering a little, you know what I mean? Just some PTSD.
You know what it is?
But, you know, maybe. But, you know, so it very well could surprise us and just be awesome.
It's true. It's making me more worried because we now know that all these Sony Spider-Man villain movies are going to roll over and cross over somehow with the MCU. They've already, we know that's happening for sure.
Which is kind of part of the surprise is if that is true, then I'm kind of surprised that we're not starting to see these films look and feel more like a Marvel film.
That's why that's why I think I'm being more hard on it, because it's not going to line up with the MCU side of stuff. Like the MCU side, especially the actual movies, very specific in look. They have like a standard now. Even their shows, the shows are pretty much just movies on Disney Plus. Yeah. So it's like they have a very specific look. And these, the 2 Venom movies and Morbius thus far, does not look like it's going to be a smooth transition just in look alone, where it's like they look and feel very different.
Yep.
So, but I could be wrong. Who knows?
They're coming together nonetheless.
Yeah, it's happening no matter what. So hold on to your butts.
For real. For real.
But anyway, we're Marvel heavy today, Tim. Very Marvel heavy.
As always, it feels.
I think we only have one DC topic today.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway.
There's they go through these like cyclical phases.
That's true.
There's time periods where there's a lot of DC going on, and then Marvel takes over, and then they just kind of bounce back and forth.
Over the weekend, Kevin Feige confirmed that Charlie Cox will be or is the MCU's Daredevil.
Yep.
Which
means he will be in Spider-Man.
Yeah. Well, I told you before we started coming on here, it was kind of a weird statement for me because we knew, like, I understand it, but my thought process was we knew the Netflix Daredevil, Punisher, Iron Fist, all the Netflix Marvel shows were in the MCU. Like they even referred to like the Battle of New York. They referred to other characters in those Netflix Marvel shows. So it was supposed to be in the MCU. They just never had actual crossover with the character from the big screen going to the small screen or vice versa. So I always was like, yeah, of course, like if they were going to bring Daredevil back, it would be Charlie Cox. But I do understand, like you were actually saying that, like once they got canceled, who's to say they just weren't going to forget about that? Just like, like kind of like in Humans, right? Where that was a show that was supposed to be in the MCU, exactly. Didn't go well. They're like, maybe that's not so much
because there was the separation. It was a Netflix. These were Netflix series that were produced in conjunction with Marvel Studios, and they were at the time they were in continuity. They were in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but the way that they went out,
it wasn't like Disney Plus.
Exactly. It was done in a way where they very plausibly could have just separated themselves entirely and started from scratch. So, but now we know.
There was enough plausible deniability.
Yes.
To be like, no, it's not.
Yeah, it's like, no, we
take it back.
That's not what we meant. You misunderstood.
It was a different Battle in New York, okay? You see, a different Loki. Loki's, he's a Marvel guy, but he's also in mythology, okay?
But they're also cracking open the multiverse, so they could easily explain it that way.
Yeah. But anyway, we now know that I guess those shows did happen in the MCU because Charlie Cox is Daredevil in the MCU, and Feige basically said that, when, how, and if he appears, it will be Charlie Cox.
I wonder where and how Daredevil. It will be.
All this stuff, it's like,
I think there's even a chance we might see him in Hawkeye.
That's what I was going to say. I feel like he may be spinning for a loop where everyone's assuming it's going to be Spider-Man No Way Home. But as we know, this is our next topic after we talk about this, that in Hawkeye episode 3, we briefly see what could only be the Kingpin.
Well, yeah, the guy's hand is bigger than the entire little girl.
He's wearing the suit. Echo, when she's a kid, she refers to Uncle. And even when she's older, she refers to Uncle. So we know there's this big mob boss running everything who she's working for. And it's her uncle. And we know in the comics, it's her adoptive father. So it makes sense that so we now know that this guy, which we could only assume is the Kingpin, is running the tracksuit mob.
It's definitely the Kingpin.
It's got to be, right?
Yeah.
Where there's smoke, there's fire kind of thing. With a Charlie Cox statement. Yes. With what we know from the comics, seeing that hand. You even hear his voice briefly. And it sounded like, what's that guy who plays Daredevil?
Vincent D'Onofrio.
It sounded like him too. Yeah. I meant to go back and play that clip just to be like, is that really him? And Vincent D'Onofrio even tweeted, I love these Marvel shows, tweeting a link to the Hawkeye trailer. So it's like, either they're freaking trolling us so hard.
I mean, he also commented on the Charlie Cox news.
Did he really?
D'Onofrio. Yeah,
what did he say about that?
He said, so happy for Charlie Cox. He really deserves this. He's a great actor and a wonderful guy. Put so much into Daredevil in such a unique way. Love this news. No fear, no greed, no envy.
Oh, man.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the hashtags, though. No fear, no greed, no envy.
Mm-hmm.
Is he not envious because he's also in the MCU now? Is he in Hawkeye?
So, yeah, I'm going to go with that's going to be a great ad. And it, relatively speaking, an unexpected. I mean, the rumors have been around for a few months now, but in terms of the overall, like this could be one of the big, inserts into the MCU in this year, particularly that most people really didn't know was going to happen.
That's what I was about to say. I'm like, what a sleeper Hawkeye might turn out to be.
See, that's what I'm saying,
dude. Like
these things, when you're not paying attention, that's when they hit you
for real. Because everyone with WandaVision, with even the Falcon, the Winter Soldier, Loki, Loki did have a good payoff though. But like,
yes, it did.
Who would have thought that freaking, I would say if everything goes to what we're thinking, where we do see Kingpin, we even see Charlie Cox, or even if we just see Kingpin, that reveal alone, and maybe even the mention of Daredevil, I think is on par with Loki and stuff. Loki opened up the multiverse, stuff like that, but as far as like not in ramifications to the MCU. Not that.
I'm saying like the Kang
was pretty good.
Really.
But so it would be the only thing to be able to compete with Loki as far as
that
reveals.
is very fair.
Out of the 4 live action Disney Plus Marvel shows thus far. Because that's huge. Because let's be honest, people love Kingpin and Daredevil way more than Kang. Those characters are way more popular than Kang the Conqueror.
No doubt.
So that's a huge thing. And it
kicks open Hell's Kitchen.
That's what I'm saying. It also, as we know, those characters are also Spider-Man villains and characters and allies.
Right.
So it's like with Spider-Man No Way Home, this could be huge.
Yeah.
Very, very huge. And again,
are we going to get back Bullseye on some level? I mean, they kind of did him dirty.
But man, I don't know. But that's making me like, because now that they're saying that, the Charlie Cox, that means Punisher too? That's MCU then?
Well, John Bernthal's already commenting on it.
Although he did say...
He said that he doesn't want to come back unless they don't water it down.
Exactly. So
which that's not saying he's not coming back.
Because
that's just telling us that they're not going to water down Punisher.
Because Feige already said that they will not be making Deadpool PG-13. It will continue to be R.
Yes.
They're not dumbing that down. Yes. So we know pre-existing things that are already R based off of Deadpool, they're not going to be like, well, it was R, and it's under the Disney banner, we're going to make it, PG-13.
I do think that you have to have a caveat though.
For what?
Because if they cross Deadpool over into the broader MCU, they will have to tone him down.
That would work though if you because you could totally be like, why are they censoring me? He's like, oh, the mouse. And then when he goes into a solo movie, it's back. Like, that would be funny.
Yeah. They'll have to do it then.
Punisher, I don't know how you would handle that, though. Because Punisher, if they're going the Netflix route,
I think you can do it.
He's blowing heads off, stabbing people multiple times and showing it.
You just reduce the actual graphic nature of the violence.
Man,
because he can still pummel the life out of people. You just don't show it as graphically.
Can you imagine we see John Barthol in No Way Home?
That'd be great.
Or even freaking Hawkeye or something.
I don't want him to be in No Way Home because I think that that character deserves
the Punisher,
a movie where he can play a more prominent role and not just have like a little.
Well, I'm saying and
I don't want them to do too much to where it just starts getting really oversaturated.
Well, I'm saying what if we get glimpses of everything where they're basically not like he's in the movie as far as playing a big role, where it's just they're showing you the multiverse, kind of almost like
Possible.
Flash going in the time stream where this all exists and you're seeing glimpses or montages of it's MCU's way of being hey guys, it's all canon now, or this is all fair game. You know what I mean?
I don't know, man. They've got so many opportunities to introduce him down the line, because my thought is they're introducing, or I should say reintroducing, Charlie Cox's Daredevil in whether it be Hawkeye first and then Spider-Man No Way Home. That was one of my big questions, right? Was saying what is Hawkeye's impact going to be on the broader MCU? And is there a reason that they gave us Hawkeye right before Spider-Man came out? And is there a reason why the last episode of Hawkeye comes out just days after the release of Spider-Man No Way Home? Right? Where they're literally crossing those over. We've seen the MCU and Marvel in general, both in comics and in film TV, do this type of stuff in the past, where they do it very strategically that way for a reason when it's that close together. So maybe not.
Yeah.
But if they're introducing Kingpin in Hawkeye, which I think at this point there's no doubt.
Yeah.
And we're now getting confirmation that Charlie Cox is coming back as Daredevil, and there's been not just smoke, but blazing fire about him Daredevil appearing in Spider-Man No Way Home. Is this going to cross over where Daredevil and Kingpin is going to be the connecting thread between Hawkeye and Spider-Man No Way Home? And if so, what other things is that going to mean? Will that mean that they're going to be spinning off into a new series potentially for Disney Plus of some kind? That has me, Mike, really wondering what they could do there, because I would love to see that.
There's just so many ways to go, right? Like we keep talking about, it's a good time to be a Marvel fan. That's for dang sure.
Yeah, they're doing some really cool stuff. I mean, obviously we knew about most of it, but that's a great insert. And for Hawkeye, we're forgetting too. We also got the White Widow coming back.
That's true.
A lot of people forget about that end scene at the end of Black Widow movie, where Fontaine shows her and says, "This is the guy who killed your sister. You want some redemption. You want some vengeance."
I wonder if that's going to connect to Echo somehow. Somehow it'll connect.
It's definitely going to play a role. She's going to show up in this series. It's just a matter of where and when.
I'm just still trying to figure out, like, what, because Echo, I mean, we're halfway through the series, and Echo hasn't done anything yet. I think that's like, she deserves her own series. So I would assume it's going to end with some sort of cliffhanger that they'll have to explore in a solo series.
Maybe both of them going after Hawkeye.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
maybe that's the downfall of Hawkeye, the death of Hawkeye.
Or it's the exploration of her.
Would they do Hawkeye like that?
I don't know. But because it's an Echo series, so like, is it going to be like her working for her dad? Oh, her uncle Kingpin?
Maybe that's the Kingpin Daredevil arc. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe Daredevil, that's the series, is they're setting up for Echo. I forgot about Echo, actually.
That's what I'm saying. But like, so they're calling it Echo as to not spoil anything off the bat, but it'll also...
Well, no, she'll probably be the central character.
That's what I'm saying, but she'll be the central character, but it's like a clever way of naming it, right? Where like, everyone's really showing up for Daredevil and Kingpin, but we're going to call it Echo. So
let me tell you something. That would be really, really smart on Marvel's part, because you got to have a draw. Because people know, Marvel fans, like real Marvel fans know who Echo is, but that's not like a big draw.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, people like us who love...
She's not a huge character by any stretch.
That's what I'm saying. People like us who watch any Marvel Disney, any Marvel Disney Plus show or any Star Wars Disney Plus show just because that's our world. But like, to the average consumer, like, they're gonna be like, Echo. But you hear Daredevil, almost that's like a household name by now. Everyone is, so be like, oh yeah, I'll watch a new Daredevil show. Yeah. You know what I mean? So there's got to be some draw on that show, not just Echo.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I actually, for a second, I forgot about the Echo series. That's probably what it is the Kingpin introduction and the Daredevil introduction. That's what they're probably setting it up for.
So I wonder if, I mean, it would make sense.
All the Hell's Kitchen stuff will probably flow through the Echo series.
It would make sense then if they end with introducing Kingpin and they're like, now you got a new target. Because we know the Kingpin already has a rival, has stuff with Charlie Cox or Matt Murdock, I'll say. So he sends Echo after freaking Daredevil because she's an assassin from the comics. So that makes sense anyway. Yeah. So I wonder if they'll go that route. That makes sense. But also,
that makes a lot of sense.
Is the Netflix Daredevil stuff, are they bringing all that too? Like, did all that happen from the Daredevil seasons?
I would have to say it has.
Right?
Yeah, I would have to say, yeah, for sure.
Curious. Very curious.
Very curious.
So that means Elektra. That means we got Elektra in the MCU. Yeah. So that's our Elektra.
That's what I'm saying. Like, if everything happened, that means all the characters they've already introduced in the Netflix Daredevil series, they can still play with. They
Bullseye,
can still have introduced.
Jigsaw.
Yeah. So this is potentially setting up for some surprising additions that people weren't looking for.
But that's what I think.
Which is really fun.
For me, that's, going back to the Loki comparison, is because with the Loki stuff, we were waiting for something big. We were theorizing Kang or Doctor Doom and stuff like that. But with Hawkeye, were you thinking going into this Kingpin or Daredevil?
No.
Well,
no.
I
will say Kingpin was in the back. It did cross my mind, but I was just like, how would you do that?
Right.
Until we found out Echo was in it. And then I was like, okay, well, that's the obvious.
It's just the pure fact, going to what we were saying at the beginning of this. It's like such a sleeper where that alone, the sheer surprise of this having the amount of significance it might end up being, while being like, hey, Kingpin is here, Daredevil is here, all those like Netflix shows, they're MCU proper now. So that alone would be like, wow, this is a very important show in the Disney Plus lineup for Marvel.
And it shouldn't surprise anybody. You know, Marvel's really good at that stuff. They have a very solid, proven track record of even sneaking up on you and surprising you, even still.
Which is crazy because it's like
even with all the spoilers.
Yeah, the WandaVision stuff, we were like, oh, you know, they're gonna do this, Mephisto, they're gonna do this. That didn't happen, so they're like, just wait. Everyone's like looking over here.
Yeah.
We're gonna put it in Hawkeye.
Yeah,
we're gonna do some stuff in Hawkeye that'll get you going. Here's some Kingpin and Hell's Kitchen,
and then they'll come back around with the other stuff we were speculating in the first place.
Yeah,
and, you know, hit us with that in some surprising way.
Can you imagine Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield show up in Hawkeye because they're in New York? They live in New York, and that would be crazy. Everyone's looking at No Way Home. They're like, "You're right, but maybe not in the right setting." Like, and then we see
past them on the street.
Could you imagine?
Dude,
that would
no way.
I would like that more because then it would take this.
It wouldn't make sense.
What?
It wouldn't make sense.
You can make it make sense. You can make it make sense. They live in the same city.
You can make it make sense. That would be very difficult. Maybe in the final episode after the events of No Way Home.
Spider-Man is,
who knows?
A lot of people would argue, or just flat out say, that Kingpin is actually a Spider-Man villain.
Could you imagine if at the second to last Hawkeye episode leading into the release of Spider-Man No Way Home, which comes out the very next day, could you imagine, because they're in New York, you imagine if some of the things that start happening in No Way Home start happening to New York?
That'd be crazy.
Like a crisis starts and they're not really sure what's going on.
The timing and planning on that part,
right? They're both in New York.
Would be crazy. It's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen.
I mean, that would be pretty cool if they did that. If they were able to make that happen to where you get a lead in to the events of Spider-Man No Way Home, then you watch Spider-Man No Way Home and see how it all played out. And then the last episode of Hawkeye is the aftermath or things that happen at the end and it picks up where it left off. Dude, that's a standing ovation from me if they're able to pull that off. Now, you know, I don't know if they're going to do it. Probably not. But that'd be pretty cool.
It would be really, really cool. But, man.
I guess that organically leads us into our conversation about Hawkeye.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Hawkeye episode 3, that show, I've said it several times already, has been a sleeper for me, and it's quickly becoming my favorite MCU Disney Plus show.
Yep.
I've loved the first 3 episodes, and the 3rd episode was the best of the 3 thus far. Man, that freaking, because that's the episode where we just said, episode 3 gave us our first, what we think, or we could highly assume is Kingpin, where at the beginning of that episode, they give the origin of Echo, which was really good because she's deaf. You see a relationship.
Before we say anything else, we should say spoilers for episode 3 of Hawkeye.
Spoilers episode 3. Come on, guys.
I guess we already blew one of the big ones. Sorry, gang. Sorry. I'll put spoilers in the comments.
So yeah, episode 3 starts off with the origin of Echo.
Whoops.
You see the relationship with her dad, how she's in normal school, and then you see her back in the bedroom, I guess later that night with her dad, and she's basically, you know, she's signing to him being like, I thought you were going to put me in school with like people like me.
Right.
He's like, we don't got the money, but he explains to her, this is going to be better for you in the long term because it's going to teach you to walk in both worlds.
Yeah.
Which I think was really smart for the character that we know she becomes, where it's like she has to be proficient and not, you know, rely on other people or devices to become what she's going to become, which is a BA, like martial artist and assassin later on. And then obviously during that process, you see her like in martial arts where fighting, like she's in karate, she's fighting other kids who don't have, you know, the disability that she has. And you even see like that kid, he's like really cocky. He's like, oh, you're putting me up a deaf girl. Like this is going to be super easy.
Right.
But she takes him out in like 2 moves, which is really cool. And it's a little bit after that moment where they keep saying her uncle. And you see this big freaking dude. You don't see his head. It's pretty much from like nipples down in a big black suit, huge
He's
hand.
not shirtless for anyone wondering. He's not.
Chest down. like, put his hand on her shoulder, and he even says something which sounds like Vincent D'Onofrio.
Did he say anything?
He
I
did.
just thought he laughed.
No, he said something, and I remember even wanting to rewind it, being like, was that his voice? That's gotta be his voice. Like, I think he said something to the effect of like, niece or whatever.
Yeah, I just remember him laughing and like pinching her cheek.
Yeah,
and he was just like,
but like
that was like if Kingpin was Santa Claus, that's what that would sound like.
but it's like you got this big dude in the suit, and it's like, who wears a nice like Armani suit like that to karate practice?
I mean,
you know what I mean?
It was so obvious and it was intentional. Like they're just telling you this is coming. We're just not giving you the full reveal just yet.
Because even in the present in the episode where you continue to see Echo and the tracksuit mafia attacking Hawkeye and Kate Bishop, she's having chats with I guess her right hand about Uncle. And like, what would he think? What would he do? And all that stuff, stuff like that. And it's like, oh, so there is this Kingpin running everything, isn't there? Because Hawkeye even refers to it later in the episode during his time as Ronin.
Yeah.
He says, that's why he got in, he was going after these guys and stuff. There's this dude, because Kate is asking him, like, what's going on? He's like, there's this guy who runs it. So I'm like, wait a minute. Are they going to make this to where, like, during his time as Ronin, he already had a run-in with the Kingpin?
Very possible.
Like, how are they going to tie that all together and stuff like that?
Honestly, based on the way that the story that they told, at bare minimum, because we don't know if Kingpin was part of the group that was snapped away. So, but at bare minimum, you would think that he would have had to have come in conflict with Kingpin's group.
For sure.
With, with his crew.
Because I don't remember. Did he say he full on met him, or he just knows of him, Clint Barton?
I can't remember.
Okay. Well, either way, he alluded to that he knows there's this head figure that is running everything.
I don't think he says either way.
Yeah.
But I don't remember for sure.
It was enough for us to be like, oh,
Yeah, but he definitely alludes to
that there's a Kingpin. Just kidding. Look at the camera. A Kingpin.
Yeah. No, they clearly set this up, and they gave you a little tease, a little just wet your palate, just getting you ready for the big full reveal, which is likely going to be the return of Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin, which is really cool. And because I really loved him in the Daredevil series on Netflix.
He's great.
So I am pleasantly surprised at the full direction this Hawkeye series go. We speculated. My speculation has been for a month and a half. This could be a real sleeper show. But
I'm loving it.
The stuff. I'm really happy that turned out to be true. But the reasons that it was such a sleeper are even more so like, that's just freaking fun.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
really, really fun.
You're bringing in some cool, because again, going back to the Loki thing was awesome. We got the introduction of Kang, great. We see the multiverse, the timelines get split open, fantastic and cool, but you still haven't touched on yet in the MCU. But like, it's just so fun to be like, we're introducing characters you love. Kingpin and Daredevil are easily two of the most popular Marvel characters. Two of the most popular characters in comics in general. So for this show to like kind of out of nowhere be like, hey guys, we're bringing them back in and using them in the MCU proper is awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
And the fact that I wasn't like overly excited or expecting any of that in the show makes it that much better for me.
It's certain and mixed with the kind of that diehard, holiday vibe that they got going in the show too. Cool. It just makes it that much more fun.
That's great point. That's adding to the fun factor for me, where it's like it's very much in the present. Where because the show is taking place during Christmas, we're all obviously watching it during the Christmas season. So it's like you're almost watching it in real time. It's one of those shows where it's like, oh, this is happening now.
It's just a great fit.
Yeah,
it's just a great fit. And you had already kind of hinted at. I guess first let me say the tone, and this is what I think is cool about it. The tone is so different from the actual Netflix Daredevil show, right? The tone of the Hawkeye, the holidays, the kind of Daredevil action vibe. But they're introducing these characters and they're doing these things in the middle of introducing Echo really well. I thought her character is pretty cool. She's actually a really new actor on the scene. I think this might even be her first big gig.
I've never seen her before.
If I remember correctly. But her character arc is really good so far. The way that they've introduced her relationship with her father, and why she's after Hawkeye and wants to take down Hawkeye, or not Hawkeye. I'm sorry, Ronan. She doesn't know it's Hawkeye. It's Ronan she's after. But also I said here on the show after watching the first 2 episodes that it was a little bit slow for me. You loved it. It was a little bit slower for me than I thought it was going to be. Still liked it. But I was waiting for it to develop a little further. The 3rd episode, however, the character development of both Kate Bishop and them diving deeper into the character of Clint Barton and Hawkeye, and even their kind of coming together and them two meshing as a team, or starting to mesh as a team. The 3rd episode did a really good job of that. That scene where he's talking to his son, his hearing aid gets broken in a fight with the tracksuit mafia.
The best scene in the episode?
Easily the best episode or scene in the episode. Yeah.
For me as well.
He gets broken. He can't hear, which, by the way, I would just want to say, I love that they introduced the hearing problem. The hearing loss problem for Hawkeye.
Great explanation.
And
it's helping build the character a lot.
Yes.
Because you feel for
because
him
that
a lot
didn't
more.
exist in the MCU previous to now.
No, but I love how they explained that all those battles and explosions and just all the trauma he's endured caused him to lose his hearing, which is great.
I love that they introduced that, because that's from the comics. Matt Fraction's storylines.
They did it differently in the MCU, which is cool. But it works for the MCU.
Yeah.
Great.
They did such a good job of introducing that. I think it was really smart, particularly for this story. And in one of their interactions, the fights with the tracksuit mafia, his hearing aid gets broken, and they go back. They escape, and they wind up back at one of the apartments and their safe house. And his son calls, and he can't hear anything.
Yes.
And so Kate Bishop comes in. And she's kind of quirky and stuff like that, but she recognizes what's happening in the moment, and she starts writing down what he's saying so he can communicate with his son. And it's just this really sweet moment where you see so much of the character of Clint Barton, but also you see this chemistry developing between the two of them. Because it also told a lot about Kate Bishop as a character. So it's just a really smart, well-written scene that told you a lot about the development of where the story's going, and it aided so much going forward. Now you see them as a team.
Yeah.
Right. And you want them to succeed together. You want him to train her and teach her, and to where, when she comes in, it makes her more endearing as a character as she becomes inevitably, I assume, the next Hawkeye. So just really well done. So the 3rd episode for me, any of the kind of slight hesitations is a little bit, all that got cleaned up in the 3rd episode for me. And we're off and running. I love what they're doing with the show.
For sure. That was one of my favorite scenes in the entire episode as well. Actually, I think it was my favorite scene in the entire episode. But before we go on, we do have to say, by the time this comes out, episode 4 will be out.
Yes.
So, I know we're talking in the past a little bit, because a lot of you probably already have seen the latest episode where maybe we did see Kingpin full on.
It actually comes out in the morning from when we're recording this. So.
Yeah. So maybe, you have saw Kingpin, in episode 4. Full face, but
full reveal.
As of now, we're doing this in the past. But anyway, that scene was fantastic. The character building there, everything you just said, and I just love seeing. One of my favorite aspects of the show is seeing the Family Man version.
Yes,
it's one of the reasons I like Superman and Lois so much. The show, because it's dealing with Superman, but not Superman fighting necessarily villains and stuff so much as it's exploring how Clark deals being the world's hero, and then also a dad and a husband
and a father,
which is really cool. And that's kind of what they're doing here with Hawkeye, where it's like he helped save the world from Thanos, Battle of New York, founding member of the Avengers. Yep. Everyone knows who he is. He's uncomfortable because of that. He doesn't want to be this hero or role model. He says to Kate Bishop in this episode, "I'm not a role model. Yep. That's not why I'm doing this. This isn't a thing. You know what I mean? I don't want people to, look up to me and kind of do the things that I'm doing," because she wants to go down that path. They're eating at a diner, and she's like, "I want to do that." He's like, she's like, "Why you want to be?" He asked, "Why are you going to be a hero?" She's like, "I want to help people and stuff like that." He's like, "Yeah, but you lose a lot doing it. You don't realize
there's a price.
There's a price for this, for helping people and stuff like that." Referring greatly, might I add, the writing was fantastic to the conflict he's currently having, where he's doing all this, losing time with his family during Christmas to make sure Kate doesn't die.
Yep.
And it's just like, she brings it up. She's like, yeah, you do all this stuff for complete strangers, and like kind of building up like, wow, Hawkeye's like awesome, right? Like subconsciously like putting in there like he is such a hero. He's willing to make sure this stranger lives and lose out on time with his family.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I just really, really like how they're building all that. And the conversation with his son, he's asking like, will you be home for Christmas? Or no, the kid actually says,
movie
he
night.
can't hear it. He's like, movie night. But at the end, the son says, it's okay if you're not home for Christmas. And Jeremy Renner played it perfectly,
really
where like
the heartbreak,
because he's like, dang it, I've gotten to the point where like my kids are fine with me not being there because they know I say I'm never home. So they're just used to it. So it's just like they've just come to accepted it. And he played that so great where he's
really
like,
well done.
I gotta be home.
I felt that.
Yeah, he's like, I gotta be home.
Yeah, as a dad of 4 kids myself, yes, I have 4 kids, and someone who has a very busy work life, and I work a lot, I felt that one in my gut.
Because that, like, even, obviously you have more kids and you have twice the amount of kids I have. I have 2, you got 4. But
I'm the veteran of the crew. Yeah.
Isn't it the worst where like, because when your kid is like bratty or like, no, I want this something. You're like, you're just like, you don't feel bad. You're like, no, go over there, tell me don't get it. Right. But when they're sweet about it and they're like, Daddy, it's okay. Or Daddy, can I please? That's what gets you. And you're like, then you feel like, I got to make this happen. You know?
For me, it has always been the, will you be home?
Yeah.
It's always been that. It's like, it's okay. I understand. But
that's worse, though. It's so much worse. It's so much worse. The acceptance.
Way worse.
Because it's happened so much where they're like, I'm not even going to argue this anymore.
Where but there's like a sadness to it.
There is.
And that's the thing that gets you. So I felt that scene on a personal level.
But Jeremy Renner, again, there's a lot of elements like that in this film where it's because even his wife is super accepting and stuff like that. Really She's actually helping him out and stuff. She's like, so you're going to do the bait and switch from the previous episode where it's like, you're going to pull a Natasha Romanoff.
That was really good.
Yeah. But, I'm really, really digging the character building they're doing for him. And it's weird that I wasn't super excited for this because this show is making me realize how much Clint Barton is like an awesome character in the MCU.
I tried to tell you.
I know. I don't know why. Like, because I'm going back and reflecting. I'm like, no, he's been great in like every MCU
single movie.
thing. He was like the heart of like, was it Civil War, where they went back to his farmhouse and stuff like that.
Huge part of Age of Ultron.
He was great in freaking Endgame, where they had to kill Natasha. That whole arc where they had to like he was gonna go and she's like, no, like. He's had easily some of the best emotional beats in the entire MCU.
Easily one of the best arcs in the MCU.
And I don't know why I
even
forgot
like
about
what they're doing in Hawkeye with him, everything that you just talked about and that we just mentioned with his struggle between wanting to be a father and a husband and what he feels is his responsibility to help people and save the world and use his skills for good. You have this. They played that story arc out. Like this doesn't like him wanting to be with his family didn't just appear in Hawkeye. He retired at one point.
He did
in the movies.
They brought him back in.
And they brought him back in. Like he's been trying to get home to his family for 10 years.
Dude, the opening of Endgame.
Yeah.
Where it opens with him and his family at his house, just teaching his daughter archery, having a picnic with all of them, and they get snapped. They vanish. And it's
a heartbreaking scene.
Dude.
Yeah.
So Hawkeye, for whatever reason, I don't know why I wasn't more excited about this, but it's teaching me how wrong I was.
The error of your ways.
I am big enough to say I was wrong. So wrong. Because this show is great and Clint Barton in the MCU is great.
It's really good. And like I said, it's really off and running now. And now with all of the Daredevil ads and we know White Widow to come at some point, there's a lot more action and fun stuff and even reveals probably to come for this show.
Didn't you were telling me that something got spoiled for you of a character who's going to appear? Okay, I don't want to know who it is, but man, now I'm curious because it can't be White Widow because we all know that's going to happen. That's like a given.
No,
man, who? Is it Spidey? Is it
We'll
Daredevil?
see.
We're talking about this. You're like, no, I knew it was Daredevil. I just didn't want to spoil it for you.
Yeah. Well, now I'm just gonna leave it. I'm just gonna let it hang until the end of the series.
Oh, man. Are you like every episode now? You're like, is this the moment? Is this the moment? Are you just waiting for it?
I'm just I'm not gonna. I don't want to say nothing.
Anyway, the episode as a whole was really good. The action was incredible. That oneer,
really good.
The
one that we saw, that clip we got. We finally got the whole scene, and it was awesome.
The one thing I will say, because that whole scene was fantastic, but the Pym arrow.
Oh my god,
dude! The Pym arrow.
Everything about his trick arrows
was hilarious
in episode 3. So good.
No, not that one. Not that one. You got one more dangerous than that one.
What is a plunger arrow for? And then she's like, "Oh, I see this." Like when he uses it, and she's like, "Oh, now I can see the utility."
It was such a good nod to people who read Hawkeye in the comic books too, because like they're using like the USB arrow, the plunger arrow, like the putty arrow. It's like, and it's so funny that they're kind of like tongue in cheek making fun of it and stuff, but also like the puncher arrow making it work, but like, oh no, it is practical. I get it.
I see why you have that. That Pym arrow though, that
awesome.
That was really, really good. As soon as you saw Pym on the head of the arrow, you were like, oh no. Yeah, really, really fun.
So yeah, Hawkeye is shaping up to be one of my favorite MCU shows thus far. Freaking good on you, Disney Plus and Marvel Studios.
Well done, everybody.
But that brings us to the last topic, Tim, which is the Penguin. HBO Max. We talked about this numerous times on the show. It was rumored for a long while.
Heavily rumored,
that Matt Reeves.
It was pretty much a given.
Pretty much a given that Matt Reeves was going to be doing a Penguin spinoff series on HBO Max with Colin Farrell reprising his role as a Penguin, and that has now been officially confirmed. It's no longer rumor. It is happening. Colin Farrell will be returning to play the Penguin in an HBO Max series that will be connected to the Matt Reeves Batman films, along with the GCPD HBO Max show that will also be connected to the Matt Reeves Batman films. So they are building their own Batman universe.
A little universe, yeah.
Which is crazy.
Taking a little page out of the Bruce Timm, Paul Dini, Batman the Animated Series.
But we haven't even seen the movie yet. And there's already 2 shows like lined up to be intertwined with it. And we
knew going in that this was going to be at least a trilogy.
Right, but what I'm saying is like they're not even waiting to see fan reaction. No one's seen the movie.
No.
And they're just greenlighting things. So is it that good? We're like, there's no way fans are not going to like this. Greenlight everything.
Yeah. Fire everything.
Yeah, just like this. Let's get ahead of it. People are going to love it. So let's just, go.
I think that, when you've done this long enough, when you've made films, when you've told stories long enough visually, you never fully know. But you get to a place where you pretty much know when something is right.
Yes.
And where it's like everything came together here. This is really good. This one's going to land. If it doesn't, I'll be shocked. And I think that that's likely the case here is because they've been working on this for years and they probably just like, this is going to be something special.
Right.
And they just want fire everything, and just let it ride. Because as you said, for them to already have greenlit 2 individual series based in the world on top of a trilogy, I think they know they got something special on their hands, which from everything we've seen is totally believable.
Yeah.
Like it looks like we're in for a fun freaking ride.
Easy, sweetheart.
Yeah, just everything I have seen from it. Even people that I know, even some people on our team here at Triune, that aren't big superhero film fans. They like them, but they're just not as big into
like
them.
A casual,
Their reaction to the Batman has been huge
because
we're just like, oh no, I'll be seeing that one in theaters.
It's one of those superhero films that transcends, where even people who are not necessarily over the moon for that kind of stuff are like, oh, but that's interesting. It looks like a cool take.
It's just a very different feel, different spin. I think they know they got something special.
And Batman's my #1 dude in all of fiction. That's my guy. So the fact that things are shaping up so nicely with his universe is amazing. I am so excited, even though I haven't seen the movie yet, but the 2 trailers look fantastic. In Colin Farrell's portrayal as the Penguin in those brief scenes we see is like, I want more of that. Because he's flat out said that he's not even in the film a lot.
Right, he's only in a few minutes.
He's in like 10, 15 minutes of the film. So it makes sense that they're going to explore him more to get his own solo series. But it begs the question, like, because obviously since they're in the same continuity, there's potential for Pattinson to appear briefly in the show. Like, it may not happen.
Gotham as well.
Yeah, in GCPD. It may not happen, but it very well could happen. We don't know what his contract is, or if he'll make cameos, or if they'll just refer to him and see him in news clips. But it's possible now. It's very possible it could happen. So it's like, this is great. And it's also like Pattinson's the next 10 years for him, because we know this is going to be a trilogy. So he's playing Batman till like close to 2030. This is just like the bulk of his life now, which is...
Do you think he's upset?
When he looks at his bank account, I'm sure he's not.
I mean, after this, that dude will be set.
Dude, Twilight, which he's still like hugely successful, multi-million off of that, because that's why he's been doing all like these artsy kind of films, because he's you know, his bank account is still plenty, doing very healthy for Twilight.
Fine.
So he wasn't doing films for money anymore. He was just doing stuff he wanted to do. So he didn't need to make like $1 million to do a film. He was just doing a lot of artsy films and stuff. But I guess Batman.
Well, he was very smart as far as from a career perspective. He was really smart. He knew that Twilight, whether you like Twilight or not, he kind of got pigeonholed because of that franchise. And he went off and he did a series of very different films, each very different from each other, that really challenged him from an acting perspective, from a performer's perspective. And he challenged himself. Like, he really, really put himself into some roles that were difficult and challenging and stretched him. And he both learned, he grew as an actor and a performer tremendously over the next several years. But also he showed creators and filmmakers that he's much more than the character in Twilight.
Oh, for sure.
That he's a real, solid performer.
So much so Matt Reeves is like Batman. You could be Batman.
Yes.
And he looks great in the trailers.
Yeah,
he looks fantastic. So I'm very excited for this. I hope in the Penguin we get more Batman, because I just want to see. But I don't even know like what's going to happen to the Penguin in the movie, but I just want more.
The idea of a mobster style, series based around that Penguin,
and he's got to go that
amazing.
That just tells you too that because the prosthetics for Colin Farrell was insane.
And he's got to do that over.
That's what I'm saying. But it just shows you that. So these HBO Max shows are that level of quality and production. Because you can't skimp on that.
No. Well, it's HBO. That's not surprising.
No, but it's just cool that they're going this route now, because they do have shows like Titans on there now and stuff where it's like notches down. That's not cinema level.
Yeah, I don't count them because they didn't start on HBO.
Because they came from DC Universe.
They were DC Universe shows
got absorbed.
that got pulled into HBO.
That's fair.
These are going to be actual HBO, DC, kind of like The Watchmen.
Yes. Yeah, that's fair.
So that's an HBO series in conjunction with DC. That was a different animal.
Anyway, we got the Batman, we got the GCPD show, and now we got the Penguin. So
solid news, man. Well, confirmation. We were all expecting it, but great confirmation.
Like I said at the beginning of this podcast, Spider-Man fans and Batman fans eating very well.
Yeah, man.
Very, very. So it's a good time to be a fan
Next
for both.
couple of years, going to get some really, really dope content.
And I'm excited to see the evolution of Batman in this universe, because that seems like what's really different. Because we saw that in the Nolan film a little bit, where his costume like evolved and his tech did, but he still had like, he just painted the Batmobile, went from, he's like, this is coming black. But like with this, it seems like Reeves is really going to explore like, because you could tell that this cowl and stuff is like stitched together. It's very much like he got like his own armored plating and he manufactured it himself. Where you could tell as the movies progress, it's like he's probably going to have a completely different Batmobile, a completely different costume. Like it's not going to just be like, oh, I painted it a different color, now it's like unique. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
It's just going to evolve into Batman proper, and I can't wait to see that evolution live action.
I'm I would argue that might be the most thing. How do I say this? That's the most excited I have been about a character development of a superhero in live action, maybe ever. And that's saying something, because there's been some great stuff, but
like I want
what they're doing with this in live action form. This has potential to be the coolest superhero film series, franchise, trilogy, whatever, ever made.
Like I want there to be jumps, like where it's like the next part 2 is like 5 years later, different Batmobile, all new Batsuit, like because now he's in his groove. You know what I mean? He's seasoned now, because this is his second year. The first film is his second year as Batman, which is fun. But as we get to the second and third, it's like, oh,
yeah,
we're gonna get. And I want Clayface so bad.
I know. I just try not to be too preemptive.
Yeah, I know.
You know what I mean? I don't want to get too ahead of things, and I don't want to hype it up too much. And I'm trying not to hype it up too much for myself. But man, Batman. It's hard. This one is hard for me. It's hard, just like a lot of you. It's hard not to get so hyped up around this because it's looking freaking amazing.
It's not a signal. It's a warning.
Yeah, man.
But on that note, that brings this podcast to an end.
It does. And we are heading into Spider-Man week.
We are.
Next week, gents, ladies and gents.
Dude.
So
Can we talk about something, Tim? Okay, guys. All right, I need to vent to the Variant Nation for a bit. So, as a community, as a unit here at Variant, right? Tim and I always see these movies together. It's it's a business outing. Literally, we have plans. We know where every superhero comic book movie. Like, we usually see them on Thursday, so we could talk about them here on the podcast or the show on the following day.
That's a fact.
So we know that Thursday, whatever the Venom movie comes out or whatever it is, Eternal Shang-Chi, we usually go to dinner, and then we see a movie. Mm-hmm. He gets the tickets. He handles all that stuff.
That's true.
Like the papa he is, and we just go. We get popcorn, we get slushies. We have a grand old time.
Yeah.
But this time, Tim, you left me in the trenches taking grenades.
I did.
Because he's going to see his family for the holidays. So he doesn't have time to see Spider-Man with me before he leaves. So I had to handle everything by myself.
Priorities are really out of order here.
No, all I'm saying is it's unfortunate. All joking aside, it's unfortunate that the biggest superhero movie of the year, we don't get to see it together.
Yeah, that is definitely.
But not only that, I'm seeing it that Thursday. You're gonna have to go days without spoilers, my dude. I am scared for you.
We'll see. We'll see how it plays out. I'm trying to work something out. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
I already got the tickets. 5:30 that Thursday. I'm deleting Twitter 2 days before it's happening because the movie comes out 2 days early in the UK.
It does, yeah.
So like on that Tuesday, whatever, that Tuesday, my phone doesn't exist. Only emergency calls and texting my wife. That's it.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, all I can say is at some point, definitively, I will be in a chair in a nice theater absorbing Spider-Man next week as well.
I am worried for spoilers though. That's gonna be tough.
Yeah, that's gonna be tough.
Because even for me, because again, it comes out 2 days early in the UK. So once it's out in the UK, it's the internet. That means it's out everywhere. Everyone knows everything that's happened, and I'm because the Han's death got spoiled for me for the Force Awakens.
I
was livid.
Yeah, that's
livid. So I even had inklings of Luke appearing in the finale of Mandalorian season 2. That didn't full on, but I had inklings of it. I saw like things.
Well, we were talking about it. Yeah. So it was kind of like speculated already.
I guess
it could happen. It could happen.
No, but I saw like pictures that kind of alluded to it.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah, I didn't tell you that. No, I saw
you might have, and I might have.
Yeah, the pitch, but it wasn't like full on. It's like, oh, it's probably. But again, that was because we were talking about that on the show. We were expecting that. But anyway, point is, this is going bye-bye on Tuesday.
I don't blame you.
I'm going off the grid.
I don't blame you because it is going to be because it's. I mean, the second that thing hits the ether, it's going to be just total pandemonium.
I'm so annoyed that they're not releasing it the same time, across the world, because it sucks for people. Because usually they release stuff in the US before the UK, but that's annoying for them because once it's out here,
so it's just the same day.
That's what I'm saying.
Do the same day,
especially with something like this. Anyway, we're ending
next week. Keep an eye out too. We are going to be doing as we mentioned already, we're going to do a Spider-Man centric episode here on the podcast next week, leading into the release of the movie, where we're going to just kind of recap and talk about and rank, by the way, all of the Spider-Man movies to date, starting all the way with Tobey Maguire's original Spider-Man back in the was it 99?
99, 2000.
Yeah, whatever.
Late 90s, early 2000s.
Long time ago. So we're going to go through all the Spider-Man movies leading into No Way Home, break it all down for you guys, and then rank them, and then see what you guys think about it. So keep an eye out for that next week.
Yes. So with that said, we'll see you guys next time when we talk about all things comics.